Story 1. You ever get that feeling like someone's watching you, even when you know nobody's around? That's how I felt driving that foggy highway. It was supposed to be a normal night hauling cargo. Just me, the hum of the engine, and the glow of the dash lights. I've driven through bad weather, worse traffic, and pulled my fair share of all-nighters, but that fog was different. Thick as soup, swirling in front of my headlights like it had a mind of its own. It wasn't natural, I'll tell you that much. Visibility was shot, maybe 20 feet in front of me tops, so I'm crawling along at 40 miles per hour trying not to miss any turns. That's when it happened. My CB radio crackled to life with that sharp static burst that makes you flinch if you're not expecting it. I'm used to hearing other truckers checking in, sometimes bored guys just talking to pass the time. But this wasn't like that. It wasn't a voice I'd expect to hear at all. It was a kid, a little girl. Her voice was small, like she'd been crying. "Help me, mister," she said, her voice all shaky. "I'm at mile marker 13. I'm not gonna lie, it sent a chill right down my spine. Kids don't talk on CBs, truckers do. I've heard pranks before, sure, but this didn't feel like one. Her voice had that raw, desperate edge like she'd been calling for help for a while, and I was the first one to answer. "You okay, kid?" I asked, glancing at the radio like I'd somehow see her face. "You lost or something? Where's your folks?" Silence. Just static fuzzing in and out. I'm gripping the wheel a little tighter, eyes squinting through the fog. I'm looking for signs, maybe a broken down car, maybe she's with someone who's having engine trouble. Nothing but that endless gray mist and the faded yellow lines on the road. Then I see it. The sign. Mile marker 13. Big, green, reflective like it's supposed to be. Right there on the side of the road, plain as day. And right next to it, her. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9, standing in a white dress like she's going to a Sunday church service. Her hair's long, hanging in front of her face. She's waving at me, slow and steady, like she's been waiting for me this whole time. I'm staring, jaw slack, hands frozen on the wheel, thinking, this can't be real. But it's real. She's right there. I'm already passing her, too fast to stop safely, too slow to pretend I didn't see her. I'm craning my neck, trying to keep eyes on her as she drifts past the passenger side window. And that's when it happens. She tilts her head, not in a curious, "What's that?" kind of way. Number. It's that slow, unnatural tilt you'd see in a horror movie, like something's wrong with her neck. Her arms still up, still waving, but slower now. Way slower. Her head's tilted so far I'm afraid it's about to fall clean off. I'm not proud to admit it, but I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I kept driving. Heart's thudding in my chest like a sledgehammer. My gut is telling me I made the right call. You don't pull over for things like that. You just don't. Then the CB crackles again. Only this time it's a whisper. "You should have stopped, Eddie." I've never felt my blood go cold like that before. It's not like she could have seen my name, not from that far away, not from the driver's side window. My name's not on the truck either. It's just the company logo. Nobody's supposed to know my name. I'm breathing hard now, like I've just run a mile, fingers gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles are white. "Who is this?" I'm shouting into the CB, trying to sound mad, but hearing the fear in my own voice. "Who's messing with me?" Nothing, just static. Then it's quiet again. So quiet I can hear my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. The fog's thicker now, swirling like it's alive, like it's got plans. I'm staring so hard at the road ahead that I almost don't see it. But I see it. Her. Standing in the middle of the road, dead ahead, hands down by her sides. Her dress isn't white anymore. It's dirty, stained like she's been crawling through mud. Her face is different too. Her hair's still hanging down, but now I see her eyes through the strands. Black, not dark brown, not shadowed. Black. Shiny and reflective, like 2 polished stones. She's looking right at me, head still tilted, a grin stretched too wide for her little face. I slam the brakes so hard I hear the squeal and feel the whole truck shudder like it's about to jackknife. The tires scream on the pavement, the cargo in the back shifts with a hard clang, and the whole rig comes to a jarring stop. I'm breathing like I've just run from a bear, eyes darting left and right, searching through the fog. She's gone. Nothing in front of me. No girl. No sign of her. Just fog so thick I'm not sure where the road ends anymore. My heart's racing like it's trying to escape my chest. I'm sitting there for a solid minute, engine rumbling under me, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then, from behind me, there's a soft knock on the back of the truck. Not loud, just tap, 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 like knuckles on metal. I'm frozen. I can't breathe. My fingers won't move from the wheel. Tap, tap, tap. This time, it's on the driver's side door. I don't look. I can't. I'm staring straight ahead like if I don't move, she'll go away. But I hear it. I hear it plain as day. A small, sweet voice just outside my window. Should have stopped, Eddie. I've never driven faster in my life. Didn't stop till I hit the next town. Parked at a diner, locked the doors, and sat there till sunrise. I'll never drive that highway at night again. And I'll never, ever answer a voice on the CB radio again. Some calls ain't meant to be answered. Story 2. I was driving late one night down a long stretch of highway. It was one of those deserted roads. No traffic lights, no other cars around. Just the dull hum of the engine and the occasional flash of my headlights cutting through the darkness. I was on my way to deliver a load, and it had been a long day, so I was exhausted. The rain had been coming down hard, and the windshield wipers could barely keep up with it. I was doing my best to stay awake, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Then, I saw him. At first, I thought it was just some weird reflection on the wet road, or maybe a trick of the light. But no, it was a man standing at the side of the highway, drenched through, with his thumb out like he was hitchhiking. Now, I'm not the type to pick up hitchhikers, especially on a deserted highway like this. But there was something about him that struck me. His soaked clothes, the way he was just standing there, not trying to get into any cars, but waiting for something. I felt bad for him. Maybe it was the storm, or maybe it was just my damn conscience, but I thought, why not? Just one person won't hurt. I slowed down and pulled over. He immediately walked over, his face pale, his eyes wide, and he didn't say anything. Just got into the truck without a word. I didn't even ask where he was headed, which, now that I think about it, was probably a mistake. He just sat there, his damp clothes making a faint smell of mildew linger in the air. The silence was suffocating. I could feel the tension building, and I couldn't shake the weird feeling crawling up my spine. Something wasn't right. I looked over at him a few times, and every time I did, he was just staring straight ahead. No movement, no sign of emotion. It felt like he wasn't even human anymore. The longer I drove, the worse the feeling got. I don't know why, but I started to get an intense urge to just get away from him. I mean, it wasn't like he had done anything yet, but everything about this situation felt off. I kept telling myself, "You're just tired. It's the storm playing tricks on you." But my gut was screaming that I needed to get rid of him. Without thinking too much about it, I slammed on the gas pedal and sped off, trying to shake off the weird feeling in my chest. I could feel my heart racing now, though. I glanced at my side mirror, just in time to see him standing on the shoulder of the road. But he wasn't walking anymore. He was moving. But how? The storm was still coming down hard, and the rain had barely let up. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but no. The guy was moving at a steady pace, and somehow, even though I had just driven off, he was walking, ahead of me, on the side of the road. I freaked out. I turned the wheel, swerved a little, then checked the mirror again. He was still ahead. How was that even possible? Panic started setting in. I accelerated, my fingers gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I looked at the mirrors every few seconds. I couldn't stop looking at the mirrors, trying to catch any sign of him behind me or beside me. But no matter what, he was always just there. Ahead, behind, or sometimes just off to the side. Every time I glanced in the mirror, there he was. He was so damn close now. I didn't know what to do, so I just kept driving. I was desperate to get to the truck stop up ahead. The whole situation felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Finally, I saw the lights of the truck stop in the distance, and I pulled in as quickly as I could. I parked and got out, my legs feeling like jelly. I wasn't going to stick around to find out what else was going on. I just wanted to be somewhere safe, with people around. So, I climbed into the sleeper, took a deep breath, and tried to calm myself. My heart was still pounding, and I couldn't stop looking out the window, checking for him. I thought, maybe if I just lay down and close my eyes for a second, I'll wake up and realize this was all some weird hallucination. But just as I was about to pull the blanket over me, I felt something cold and wet brush against my ankle. I jumped, my heart nearly stopping. I looked down, expecting to see a puddle of water on the floor, but there was nothing. I felt that coldness again, and then I felt the grip. A hand, a cold, soaking wet hand wrapped around my ankle. I froze. My stomach twisted in terror. I didn't want to look, but I had to. And when I did, I saw his face. That same damn hitchhiker. His soaked face, pale and lifeless, with his lips twisted into a grin that stretched unnaturally wide. His eyes were wide open, but they weren't human anymore. It was like he was laughing at me. Before I could even scream, he yanked me out from under the covers, pulling me toward the floor. I tried to fight, but the grip was too strong. His grin stayed frozen even as he pulled me under. And the last thing I saw was his soaked face, inches from mine, as he whispered, "I'll always catch up with you." Everything went black after that. To this day, I don't know what happened after. I woke up in my truck the next morning, drenched in sweat and mud, but there was no sign of the hitchhiker. No wet footprints. Nothing. I don't know if I hallucinated it or if it was something more sinister, but I'll never pick up another hitchhiker again, no matter what. And every time I pass that stretch of road, I can't help but wonder, what if he's still out there, waiting for someone else to stop? So yeah, I don't know if it was just me going crazy from exhaustion or if something truly messed up happened that night, but it still gives me chills thinking about it. Maybe it's just a story, but be careful out there. You never know who or what you might pick up on the road. Story 3. It was around midnight when the rain started coming down heavy. I had been on the road for hours, and the storm wasn't showing signs of letting up. I decided to pull over at a small, quiet truck stop off the highway to rest for a bit. There were no other trucks parked there, and it seemed like the perfect place to take a quick nap. I parked my truck at the edge of the lot, near a patch of trees. The rain was relentless, pouring down in sheets, and the wind howled like some kind of animal. The world outside was a blur of water and darkness, with no streetlights to speak of. I threw on my blanket, laid my seat back, and closed my eyes. At some point, I must have dozed off. But then something woke me up. It wasn't anything loud or obvious, just a soft, distinct sound, like the click of a car door unlocking. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I glanced at the clock, 3 a.m. I wasn't sure if I was still half asleep, but I could have sworn I heard that sound again, this time clearer. The passenger side door. It had unlocked. I stared at the door for what felt like forever, but I didn't hear anything else. Maybe it was just the wind? But no, there was something off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Slowly, I reached for the door handle and looked out the window. It was pitch black outside, the rain coming down so hard I could barely make out shapes. No one was there. The lot was empty. Just the sound of the storm. I let out a shaky breath and locked the door again. But as soon as I did, a new noise came. Slow, deliberate knocks from the back of the sleeper cabin. Knock, knock, knock. My heart was pounding in my chest now. I gripped the wrench I kept in the truck, just in case. It was the only thing I could think of to protect myself. I swung open the curtain that separated the cab from the sleeper area, the sound of rain pelting the windows filling my ears. But when I looked, there was nothing there. No one. Nothing. Just the empty bed of the truck. I felt a chill crawl up my spine, but I couldn't bring myself to move. I stood there, staring into the darkness, waiting for any sign of movement, any explanation. I didn't know what to do. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wrench. My mind raced, trying to make sense of everything. The knocking had stopped, but the tension in the air was thick. I climbed back into the driver's seat, feeling like something was still watching me. Then, through the fogged-up windshield, something strange happened. A message slowly began to form in the condensation. At first, it was hard to make out, just a blur of lines. But then the letters became clearer, as if someone was writing on the glass from the outside. The message read, "Check the back." I was frozen. My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. Before I could process it, the knocking started again. Louder this time, more insistent. Knock, knock, knock. I couldn't sit there anymore. I had to know what was going on. My stomach churned as I forced myself out of the truck and walked around to the back. The rain stung my face as I stepped into the wet darkness. The knocking was still echoing, but no one was there. I approached the sleeper cabin slowly, my mind racing with possibilities. Then I saw it. There, on the back door of the truck, was a handprint. It wasn't just a regular handprint, it was smeared, as if someone had pressed their palm against it and then dragged their hand down the door. But the worst part? The handprint was fresh. The rain hadn't washed it away. It was still there. A feeling of dread washed over me as I stood there, staring at the door, wondering what the hell had just happened. Suddenly, I heard a voice. It wasn't from outside. It was inside my head. It was faint, but unmistakable. "You should have left when you had the chance." I didn't need to hear anything more. I jumped into the driver's seat, started the engine, and floored it out of there. I didn't care if it was dangerous to drive in the rain. I didn't care if the storm was getting worse. All I knew was that I had to get away from that truck stop, from that place. I never went back there. But every time I pull over to sleep on the side of the road now, I double-check the locks. I make sure nothing is in my rearview mirror. And sometimes, just sometimes, I feel that same chill. The kind of chill you get when you're certain that someone, or something, is still out there. Watching. Waiting. And it makes me wonder if I was the one meant to check the back all along.